Mrs. Margaret was 68 years old, a retired public school teacher, born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina, mother of 3, grandmother of 5, a woman who for 40 years walked into a classroom at 7 in the morning, faced children, teenagers, school board meetings, and still came home to put dinner on the table for her family. When she walked into my office, I looked at her and immediately noticed something was off. It wasn't her age, it wasn't her posture, it was her eyes. Margaret told me a sentence I've never forgotten. She said it in a low voice, almost apologizing for being there. "Doctor, I think I'm getting old way too fast. I sleep through the night and wake up exhausted. I forget where I put things. My legs tingle when I sit on the couch. And yesterday I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back at me." Think about that with me. I didn't recognize the woman staring back at me. I've been a physician for almost 20 years, and one of the diagnoses I've learned to respect the most in clinical practice is exactly this one. The patient who walks in believing the problem is simply aging, when in reality, the problem is a silent deficiency that's slowly dimming them from the inside, day after day. And Margaret's story stayed with me because she represents a reality I see every single week. According to data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, conducted by the Centers for Disease Control, more than 40% of American adults have insufficient levels of vitamin D, and that number climbs significantly in adults over 60. When we talk about vitamin B12, research published by the American Academy of Family Physicians estimates that nearly 1 in 5 older adults in the United States has insufficient levels, even when they eat regularly every day. 40%, 1 in 5. These are not small numbers. They are silent crowds, walking through grocery stores, sitting in church pews, driving to appointments, thinking they're just aging poorly, when in fact they may be deficient in 2 vitamins that control things most people never imagine. And I need to be honest with you. The title of this video talks about curing the deficiency, and I'm going to show you exactly what to do every single day to correct that deficiency safely, based on scientific evidence. But my commitment to you is medical truth, not sensationalism. Restoring and stabilizing your levels is absolutely possible, but it requires consistency, it requires time, and it requires follow-up. There is no miracle capsule that fixes in 1 week what your body took years to fall behind on. And whenever you're about to make any change in your treatment, talk to your doctor. That premise never changes. Now, back to Margaret. When I dug into her routine, I found exactly what I find in nearly every patient over 60. She rarely went outside during the day. She went to church early in the morning, came back before the sun got strong, had breakfast, took a nap, and in the afternoon she sat on her covered porch, skin protected, always, for decades. And her diet? Coffee with cream and toast in the morning, a sandwich or a small salad at lunch. In the evening, a light soup or some chicken with vegetables. Almost no fatty fish, almost no liver, eggs with the yolk, or fortified milk. A diet that many Americans would call healthy, but one that is extremely poor in the nutrients that sustain your nervous system, your bones, and your blood after 60. And here's the point hardly anyone talks about. Vitamin D and vitamin B12 aren't simply vitamins. They are messengers. They are the keys that open doors inside your body. Without vitamin D, the calcium you eat doesn't make it into your bones. It just floats in your bloodstream with nowhere to go. Without B12, the nerve cells lose the protective coating that wraps each fiber, like the plastic that insulates an electrical wire. And then, the signal leaks. The message that leaves your brain arrives twisted at your foot. The tingling starts. The memory slips. The balance gets shaky. Think about your house for a moment. Imagine it has a central electrical panel that distributes power to everything. The light switches, the refrigerator, the hot water heater, the outlet where you charge your phone. That electrical panel is your vitamin system. If power fails there, it's not one bulb that goes dark. It's the whole house starting to flicker. Vitamin D is the main breaker that keeps your muscles firm, your bones solid, and your immune system alert. B12 is the wiring that connects your brain to the rest of your body. And when those two fail together, the whole house starts to flicker. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to reveal exactly what to do every day to turn this picture around. And there's one detail about how to take these 2 vitamins together that completely changes the result. Most people get it wrong, and that's why they spend months on supplements without seeing any improvement. Before we continue, I need to ask you for one thing. If this content is helping you, if you're learning something you didn't know, hit the like button right now. That simple gesture helps this video reach more people who need this information. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it now and turn on the bell. And tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I love seeing where this community is growing. Now, let's talk about the mechanism. Because understanding what happens inside your body is half the battle. When sunlight hits your skin, more specifically your arms, your legs, and your face, a molecule called 7-dehydrocholesterol is converted into vitamin D3. That molecule travels through your blood to the liver, then to the kidney, and only then becomes the active form that works throughout your body. In other words, it's a journey in 3 stages: skin, liver, kidney. If you don't get sun, the first stage fails. If your liver is overloaded, the second stage stalls. If your kidney starts to lose function with age, the third stage weakens. And that's exactly why, after 60, deficiency becomes nearly epidemic. It isn't just a lack of sun, it's an accumulation of weak links along the way. Vitamin B12, on the other hand, depends on a path that's even more complex. It enters the stomach with your food, needs stomach acid to separate from the protein, then needs to bind to a substance called intrinsic factor, produced by the stomach itself, and only then can it be absorbed at the end of the small intestine. Look how many steps: stomach, acid, intrinsic factor, intestine. You know what happens after 50? The stomach starts producing less acid. People who take medication for acid reflux or heartburn reduce it even further. People who had bariatric surgery lose intrinsic factor. People with inflamed intestines don't absorb properly. And then the B12 that was on the plate simply passes through the body and leaves through the back door. In plain English, you can be eating well and still be deficient. Because the problem isn't what enters your mouth, it's what your body actually absorbs. That's exactly what happened to Mr. Frank, 64 years old, a retired auto mechanic from Birmingham, Alabama. A strong man, worked his whole life under cars, was out in the sun every day. He came to my office with a complaint that he himself thought was strange. He told me, "Doc, I don't get it. I eat eggs every morning. I have meat with almost every meal. I'm out in the sun like a lizard, and somehow my legs are numb, and I keep forgetting where I left my truck keys. How can I be low on vitamins?" And here's the point few doctors investigate. Mr. Frank had chronic acid reflux for 20 years and was taking omeprazole every morning. Every single morning. For decades. His stomach acid was practically neutralized, and the B12 coming in through his mouth couldn't separate from the protein in the meat. It passed right through. It came out intact. And the sun he was getting? It was always after 3 in the afternoon, when the angle of ultraviolet B radiation is no longer strong enough to produce vitamin D in the skin. 30 years of getting sun at the wrong time. Think about that. 30 years. When I ran the tests, his vitamin D was at 15 nanograms per milliliter, when the ideal is above 30. His B12 was at 210 picograms, when the adequate level in older adults should stay above 400. The numbers spoke for themselves. And this is where the conversation gets really important, because now you understand the problem. You understand it isn't enough to eat well, you have to absorb. It isn't enough to get sun, you have to get it at the right time. It isn't enough to take any capsule, you have to know which form, which dose, with which kind of fat, alongside which nutrient. I'm going to tell you exactly what I recommended for Margaret, and what you can do every day to correct this deficiency. But pay attention, because every detail matters. The first thing, and probably the most overlooked, is the morning sun. Good sun is sun between 9 and 11 in the morning, when the angle of the radiation allows your skin to synthesize vitamin D. 15 to 20 minutes with arms and legs exposed. No sunscreen during that small window, 3 times a week. After that, yes, sunscreen comes on. But the initial window has to happen. Think of the morning sun as the early fuel that powers your central electrical panel. The second thing is smart supplementation of vitamin D. For older adults with deficiency confirmed by lab work, the medical literature commonly recommends doses ranging between 2,000 and 4,000 international units per day, always guided by your doctor after a blood test. And here's a detail that changes everything. Vitamin D is fat-soluble. That means it can only be absorbed in the presence of fat. Taking the capsule on an empty stomach, with just a glass of water, is practically throwing the vitamin away. In plain English, vitamin D needs a ride from fat to enter your body. Take it with your main meal, after a plate that includes olive oil, avocado, fish, eggs, or nuts. Then it actually gets absorbed. Without that ride, it passes right through. And the number here is striking. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, conducted by researchers at the Cleveland Clinic, showed that people who took vitamin D alongside a meal rich in fat absorbed up to 32% more than those who took it on an empty stomach. 32%. That's the difference between actually treating the deficiency and supplementing in vain. The The third thing, and this is where B12 comes in, is understanding that the form of the supplement matters. There are two main forms, cyanocobalamin, the most common synthetic form, and methylcobalamin, the active form, ready to be used by the body. In older adults, in people with chronic gastritis, or in people taking medications for acid reflux, methylcobalamin is often more effective because it skips steps that the aging stomach can no longer perform. And here's a detail few people know. B12 can be taken sublingually, meaning under the tongue. That's because it gets absorbed directly through the lining of the mouth, without needing to pass through the stomach and intrinsic factor. For someone with compromised absorption, that route can make a real difference. Think of it this way. If the front door of your house is jammed, you don't stand there fighting with it. You go in through the back door. The sublingual route is the back door for B12. The fourth thing is what you put on your plate, and this is where food comes back into the game. For vitamin D, the champions are fatty fish, sardines, salmon, tuna, mackerel. A can of sardines 3 times a week makes a meaningful contribution. For B12, beef liver is the absolute king. A small serving of liver once a week provides several times the daily requirement. And you know what else? Whole eggs with the yolk, aged cheeses, lean red meat, and fortified milk round out the picture. And here's the point few doctors mention. Vitamin D and calcium walk hand in hand. One without the other doesn't really work. That's why fortified milk, plain yogurt, and cheeses play a double role. They deliver the calcium and the fat that carries vitamin D into your cells. The fifth thing, and this is the one that transformed Margaret the most, is movement. Walking 30 minutes a day, outdoors, in the morning or at the end of the afternoon, does 3 things at the same time. It supports vitamin D synthesis through sunlight. It improves the circulation that carries B12 to your tissues, and it strengthens the muscles that protect your bones, especially when those bones are still weak from previous deficiency. Margaret started this protocol in March. Morning sun, vitamin D3 with lunch alongside a salad with olive oil and avocado, sublingual methylcobalamin before bed, sardines twice a week, liver once, a 30-minute walk in the park near her house every morning, and monthly follow-up appointments for the first 3 months. When she came back 3 months later, I almost didn't recognize her. Her vitamin D had climbed from 17 to 42 nanograms. Her B12 had jumped from 230 to 610 picograms. The numbers were clear. But what stayed with me wasn't the lab work. It was when she sat down in the chair across from me, gave me that wide smile and said, "Doctor, it feels like something shifted on the inside. I wake up rested. I remember where I put things. My legs don't tingle anymore when I sit down. And yesterday I looked in the mirror, and the woman staring back at me was me again." Look at the weight of that sentence. Was me again. What hurts me the most as a physician isn't when a patient walks in with a serious diagnosis. It's when they tell me they lost years of their own life believing it was just normal aging, when in reality it was a treatable deficiency that could have been corrected with 5 daily habits. Years, not days. Years living below their own capacity, believing the fatigue was age, believing the forgetfulness was senility, believing the tingling was just circulation. It wasn't. It was a missing vitamin. It was a key that had been lost and could be returned. Your body is not your enemy. It's constantly trying to balance itself, heal itself, adapt. When sleep no longer restores you, when memory fails, when your legs tingle, those are signals. They are quiet calls for help your body is sending out. And almost always, with the right workup and the right protocol, those signals fade away. Let's recap what we learned today. Morning sun between 9 and 11, 3 times a week. 15 to 20 minutes with skin exposed. Vitamin D3, taken with a meal that contains healthy fat, always guided by lab work and your doctor. B12, preferably in the methylcobalamin form, sublingual for anyone with compromised absorption, also under medical guidance. Fatty fish, liver, whole eggs, aged cheeses, and fortified milk spread throughout the week. A 30-minute walk every day. Follow-up labs every 3 months at the beginning, then every 6. 5 habits. 5. That's what separates the Margaret of before from the Margaret of today. It isn't magic, it's consistency. And give me a like right now if this information made sense to you. Share this video with that family member who's always complaining about being tired, that friend who keeps forgetting things, that father or mother who's been saying they're just getting old too fast. They may only need a key that was lost and can be returned. In the next video, I'm going to reveal the 5 physical signs your body sends when a magnesium deficiency is hiding in plain sight. And the 4th one is what most people confuse with an emotional problem. You're not going to want to miss it. Take care of your central electrical panel. It's what keeps every light in your life shining.